Earth was quiet, too quiet. Cities once filled with voices now stood silent, damaged, and tired. The war against the Xyrillians had lasted only 5 years, but it had been enough to bring humanity to its knees. Commander Elias Cross stood at the edge of the UN's skyport, watching a sleek alien ship descend from the clouds. It didn't matter that he was Earth's top strategist, or that he had won more battles than anyone alive. Earth had lost, and now he was being offered up like a trophy. The peace treaty between Earth and the Xyreli Empire had only one strange condition. Elias must marry the youngest Xyreli princess Valazin. No one understood why. Many believed it was a cruel joke, a way to show that even humanity's strongest warrior could be owned. Elias didn't want to do it. He had lost friends, soldiers, even family in the war. Now he was expected to shake hands with the enemy and marry one. Still, he said yes. Not for pride, not for peace, but for survival. If his agreement stopped the bloodshed, then he would do it, even if it meant giving up everything. The wedding was not held on Earth. Elias was taken to the Xyreli, capital ship a floating city made of metal and glowing crystals. Everything felt cold, sharp, and distant. He didn't understand their language, but they spoke through perfect translators that buzzed slightly in his ear. The wedding hall was enormous, filled with alien nobles, dressed in silks that shimmered like liquid stars. Hundreds watched from floating balconies as Elias was brought in, wearing Earth's faded military dress uniform. He felt out of place, like a soldier in a museum. Then she entered. Princess Valazin, the youngest daughter of the Empress. She looked nothing like the war generals Elias had faced before. She had glowing violet eyes, silver-white hair tied into braids, and smooth blue skin that seemed almost unreal. Her expression was unreadable, neither cold nor warm, just calm. To calm, she didn't smile. She didn't even look at him. The ceremony was short. Their hands were bound by glowing threads as an old Xyreli elder chanted something sacred. A translator whispered in Elias's ear, bound by unity, bound by choice, bound by sacrifice. Choice, Elias thought bitterly. There was no choice in this. When it was over, the crowd gave a slow, respectful bow. Not clapping, not cheering. Just silence. A silence that felt heavier than any battlefield Elias had ever stood on. Their living quarters were large, but separated. They didn't speak that night. Vela stayed behind closed doors, and Elias sat by a window, staring out at the stars. Thought about home? About Earth's shattered cities? About the soldiers who would never return? He clenched his fists. He wasn't angry at Vela, not exactly. It was just a piece in a bigger game like he was. But why him? Why had she agreed to marry a human? The next few days passed slowly. Elias was introduced to Xyreli customs, shown around cold marble halls, reminded constantly that he was now part of the royal family, if no one truly saw him that way. Xyreli nobles sneered behind their masks. Some called him the pet of peace. Others avoided him entirely. He wasn't just an outsider. He was a symbol of weakness. Vela spoke rarely, and she did it with short, direct, and formal. "Are free to use the East Garden," she said once. "I have no interest in human food," she said another time. But Elias noticed something strange. Every night, she left her chambers quietly and returned hours later, sometimes with scratches on her hands. Once, with a torn cloak, she never explained, and no guards ever followed her. Where did she go? He wondered. One evening, Elias was brought to a private dinner with high-ranking Xyreli officials. The Empress herself was not present, but her advisors were. They spoke about the treaty, about rebuilding Earth under Xyreli control, about turning old battlefields into shared outposts. Elias listened silently. When asked to speak, he said only one thing: "We won't forget." The room went quiet. No one responded. But Vela looked up for the first time. And for just a second, Elias saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Respect. Pain? Regret? Then it was gone. Later that night, Elias walked through the dark palace halls alone. He passed giant statues of past Xyreli leaders. All of them warriors. All of them with the same cold eyes. He paused at a balcony overlooking the stars. His thoughts returned to Earth. To the moment he accepted this role, to the faces of those he couldn't save, a soft voice broke the silence. "You hate us." Turned Vela stood behind him, cloak drawn tight around her shoulders. "I don't hate you," Elias said quietly. "I hate what happened." Vela nodded slowly. "So do I." She walked beside him, standing just close enough to see the stars. "You think this marriage is a punishment? Maybe it is, but I chose it." Elias turned to her, surprised. "Why?" But she didn't answer. She only whispered, "Because this war is not over. Not really." Then she walked away, disappearing into the shadows once more. Elias stood there, heart pounding. For the first time, he realized something deeper was happening. This marriage wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Elias Cross had been in the Zyrelli Palace for over a week now, but it still didn't feel real. Every wall, every hallway was made of sharp glass, glowing metal, and smooth stone. The ceilings were high and cold, and the guards never spoke. He was not treated like a prisoner, but he was not treated like a husband either. Princess Velezin remained distant. She spoke only when necessary, and always in short, careful sentences. When they sat at dinners together, she never made eye contact. When they walked side by side in public, it felt more like two statues than a royal couple. Still, Elias noticed everything. She always wore the same dark blue cloak at night. She always left her room after midnight, slipping past the guards without a word. Sometimes she returned limping, once her hands were wrapped in bandages. Elias didn't ask, but he remembered her words, because this war is not over, not really. Each morning, Elias was shown around different parts of the palace. Zyrelli nobles took turns giving him lessons more like lectures about their history, their science, their technology. They called it education. He called it control. "Your species is young," said one noble, with long silver robes, "but perhaps with guidance you can learn." Elias gave a polite nod, but inside he was burning. Back on Earth, he had studied alien languages, read ancient Zyrelli war records, and even fought against their elite commanders. Now they treated him like a child. Only one thing kept him going: curiosity. Not about the Empire, but about Vela. One afternoon, he followed her. He waited until her guards changed positions. Then he used an old trick he had learned in jungle warfare: soft steps, long shadows, and silence. Vela slipped out of the palace through a side gate, moving quickly. Elias stayed far behind, careful not to be seen. She passed through gardens, into the servant tunnels, then down into the lower levels of the palace. The lower levels were different. No gold, no shining lights, just old stone walls and strange graffiti. This part of the palace looked forgotten. Then Elias saw it. A secret. Meeting Vela stood before a group of Zyrellians, not nobles, not soldiers. These ones looked poor. Some had missing limbs. Others wore cloaks full of burn marks and patches. There were even humans among them. 2 men, 1 woman. Dirty, thin, but alive. Vela was giving them supplies, medical kits, food packs, weapons. She wasn't escaping the palace. She was building a rebellion. Elias didn't speak. He stayed hidden and watched. For the first time, he saw the princess as a leader. Her voice was firm, her face full of passion. "This empire is sick," she said in her native tongue. Elias understood enough to follow her meaning. "It feeds on fear. We must change it from within." One Zyrelli man stepped forward. "They'll kill you if they find out." Vela nodded. "Then we don't get caught." She handed him a sealed tablet. "Spread the message. Quietly, carefully. No more blood unless it's the last option." The meeting ended. People vanished into the shadows. Vela stood alone in the dark for a moment. Elias could see her shoulders drop just a little. For once she looked tired, human. He stepped forward, revealing himself. Vela turned sharply. Her eyes widened. "How long have you been there?" she asked. "Long enough," Elias said. They stared at each other for a moment. "Are you going to report me?" she asked quietly. "No," Elias said. "I want to help." Vela didn't. trust him at first. She crossed her arms, looking at him carefully. You were a war hero, she said. Why help the enemy? You're not my enemy anymore, Elias replied. Not if you're trying to stop the real one. She looked away for a moment, thinking. Then she sighed. The empire is falling apart, she said. The empress is old. Her daughters fight each other in secret. Some want power, some want destruction, and the people suffer. Elias nodded. Earth knows that pain. She looked back at him. That's why I asked for you. Elias blinked. You asked for me? Vela gave a small smile. I studied you during the war. Your battles, your decisions. You don't follow orders blindly. You care about people. I needed someone like that. Elias was stunned. So this marriage wasn't the Empress's idea? Vela said. It was mine. The next few days changed everything. Vela showed him her secret maps. Resistance. Networks. Old allies in hiding. Hidden outposts. Even the Empress didn't know about. Elias brought ideas. Old Earth tactics. Signal codes. Hiding movements behind trade ships. Together, they planned something greater than survival. They planned to expose the Empire. Late one night, as they studied maps side by side, Vela leaned back and looked at him. You're not what I expected, she said softly. Elias smirked. Neither are you. They didn't smile much, not yet. But something had changed. They weren't enemies. They weren't strangers. They were partners. But danger was always close. One morning, Zyrelli Noble noticed something strange in the palace records, missing food shipments, unusual guard movements. Someone was watching. Elias and Vela didn't panic. They moved faster. They shortened their timeline. The first mission was set: sneak into the royal archives and find proof of the Empire's war crimes. If they could show the truth to the galaxy, maybe, just maybe, others would rise. As Elias prepared for the mission, he looked at Vela and said, This started as a prison. She looked back and replied, But now it's a spark. Together, they walked into the fire. The Royal Archive Tower was the most secure place in the Zyrelli Palace. It held thousands of years of history, every treaty, every secret war, and every order the Empress had ever given. No one entered without permission, not even the princesses. But Vela and Elias were not following permission. They were following truth. That night, the skies above Zirilio's Prime were cloudy, a perfect cover. The guards had been moved by Vela using false orders only for 10 minutes. Elias wore dark armor. Borrowed from the old rebel stockpile, Vela moved beside him, dressed in a shadow cloak that made her look like part of the wall. This is madness, Elias whispered. Not madness, Vela replied, her eyes sharp. Strategy. They entered through a small maintenance shaft, crawling through metal tunnels like thieves. Elias felt the old thrill of danger return. This time, though, it wasn't a mission for his planet. It was for the galaxy. The archive door was sealed with Zirili Coda glowing sphere that scanned DNA. Give me your hand, Vela said. Elias hesitated. You trust this thing? She nodded. Only works if we both scan. Marriage code. He raised an eyebrow. So, our wedding has some use after all. She gave a small smile. They placed their hands on the orb. The door opened with a deep hum, revealing a wide hall filled with glowing data crystals. Elias stared. This is more than I imagined, Vela moved quickly, finding the red crystal section. This is the restricted zone, hidden from the public. She handed Elias a small device. Copy everything you can. We have 6 minutes. Elias worked fast. Crystal after crystal was scanned and downloaded. War orders, civilian records, death counts from planets that were supposed to be peacefully integrated. It was worse than he expected. He paused on one record. Earth campaign, civilian losses, -underreported. His jaw tightened. They lied about how many died. They always lie, Vela said quietly, even to us. She was holding a crystal tightly in her hands. It glowed red and pulsed like a heartbeat. What's that? Elias asked. Vela looked at him. Proof that my mother ordered the destruction of 12 peaceful colonies, including 2 early ones. That's treason, she said. It's truth. Suddenly, the orb at the door blinked red. Someone's coming, Elias said. They hid quickly behind a tall row of archives. Footsteps echoed. 2 guards entered, scanning the room. Elias reached for his weapon. Bela shook her head and whispered, "Wait." The guards stopped, looked around, then walked back out. "They didn't see us," Elias whispered. Lucky Vela replied, "Now move. We don't have much time." They left through the lower maintenance path, exiting behind the palace gardens. As soon as they reached the rebel tunnel, both breathed a sigh of relief. "That's it," Elias said. "We have enough to show the entire empire what the Empress has done." Vela nodded. "But we need to be careful. If we release it the wrong way, they'll call it fake. We need to broadcast through neutral channels. One even the palace can't shut down." Elias looked at her. "You already have a plan. Don't." Vela's eyes burned like fire. Always. Over the next few days, they worked non-stop. The rebel network helped clean and decrypt the data. Some of the humans Elias had seen before were engineers once captured by the Empire, now free and loyal to Vela's cause. "Why do they follow you?" Elias asked one night, as he and Vela reviewed the final files. "Because I listened when no one else did," she said. "Because I treat them like people." Elias nodded slowly. "That's rare among rulers." "I don't want to rule," she said. "I want to repair." Elias looked at her. Really looked. He remembered the cold girl he had met on the wedding day. So quiet, so distant now. She was something else entirely. Brave, sharp, kind. He didn't say anything, but something in his chest felt warmer. The broadcast was ready. The rebels had a stolen Zarelli drone ship small, fast and perfect for reaching the HaloNet, the largest unfiltered data satellite floating above neutral territory. "Once it's sent, there's no going back," Elias said. "Good," Vela replied. "Let the galaxy see the truth." Elias climbed into the ship. Vela stood outside the hatch, watching him. "I should go with you," she said. "No," Elias replied. "You need to stay here. If I'm caught, they'll blame me alone. You'll still have time to move the others." She frowned. "Sound like a soldier again?" He smirked. "I never stopped being one." Then something surprising happened. Vela stepped forward and placed her hand on his chest. "Come back alive." Elias paused, then placed his hand over hers. "I will." Drone ship launched quietly through the upper vents. Elias guided it past palace defenses, through dark skies, and into the void. The journey took only 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. When he reached the HaloNet, he uploaded the files. One by one. The war crimes, the secret orders, the hidden death council sent across hundreds of channels. Every planet, every system, and then silence. For a moment, Elias feared the signal was blocked. Then the messages began. One screen lit up, received. Another confirming truth, evidence matches. Then a dozen more, then thousands. Elias sat back, smiling for the first time. In weeks, it had begun. Back on Zerlio's prime, chaos broke out. Citizens protested in the streets. Rebel symbols appeared on buildings. The Empress ordered arrests. Entire noble houses split in loyalty. And in the center of it all stood Princess Velazin, calm, brave, and unshaken. Her marriage had once been a joke to the Empire. Now it was a symbol of rebellion. The galaxy had seen the truth. Across thousands of worlds, Zyreli war crimes were now public. The royal archives had shown everything colonies destroyed, peaceful planets invaded. Lies spread to cover their crimes. Rebellions started overnight. On Earth, people cheered. On other planets ruled by the Zyreli Empire, civilians marched with signs, shouting for justice. Soldiers deserted. Some even joined resistance groups. For the first time in centuries, the Empire was afraid, and in the center of it all, standing quietly in a palace of enemies, was Princess Velazin. Elias returned safely from the broadcast mission. His ship landed in an old cargo bay used by the rebels. As he stepped out, he was surprised to see Vela waiting for him. "You made it," she said. "Of course I did," he replied. "Did you think I wouldn't?" She smiled faintly. "Psst. For once, I wasn't sure." They walked together through the tunnels. The rebels, human and Zyreli alike, nodded as Elias passed. He was no longer just a symbol. He was a fighter in their cause. But change came fast in with it. Danger. That same night, 3 royal guards tried to assassinate Vela. They failed. Elias stopped them using a combination of Earth close combat tactics and quick thinking. Was the first time the rebels saw him fight, and they were amazed. "You move like you were built for war." One Zyreli fighter said. "I was," Elias replied. "But now, I fight for peace." After the attack, the palace tightened its grip. Drones scanned every hall. Noble families sent spies. The Empress made a speech calling the rebels traitors, liars, and enemies of order. But the people no longer believed her. Vala's name spread like wildfire. Whispers called her the Starflame, a royal who stood against her own blood. She was still a princess, but now she was a leader. Elias stayed close to her. They trained every day hand-to-hand combat, planning missions, learning each other's moves. They trusted each other completely now. There was no doubt, no wall between them. One night, as they sat alone, Elias looked at her and asked, "Do you ever regret it?" "What? Choosing me? Starting this?" Vela paused, then shook her head. "No, I regret waiting so long." The next mission was risky. They had to take over a communication hub in Orbit 1 used by the Empress to control media and fleet orders. If they could take it, they could stop her lies and reroute supplies to rebel-friendly planets. But it was guarded by a Zyreli warcruiser, the Blood Rain. "We can't fight that ship," said Krell, one of the older rebels. "No," Elias said, "but we can steal it." Everyone stared at him. "You want to hijack a royal battlecruiser?" Vela asked. He grinned. "Why not? I've hijacked worse." They planned for 5 days, using insider codes from rebel contacts. Elias and a small team including Vela boarded the warcruiser, disguised as engineers. They wore gray suits and carried fake ID chips. Inside, the ship was a giant of metal and energy. Glowing cores powered the engines. Soldiers moved through long glass tunnels. Everything had to go perfectly. For a while, it did. Then a patrol guard scanned Elias and noticed his chip was fake. The alarm blared. "Go loud," Elias shouted. Blasters fired. Smoke bombs dropped. The rebels moved fast, securing the control room in minutes. Elias hacked into the ship's AI core. Using Earth code to disable weapons and flight systems, Vela stood at the front of the bridge, looking out at the stars. "This is it," she said. "This ship will become the symbol." They renamed it the Rising Flame. The message was clear. The people would no longer kneel, using the stolen ship. The rebels reached out to planets in secret. Supplies were delivered to starving cities. Former prisoners were rescued. And every time the Rising Flame appeared, people cheered. The Empress was furious. She sent her personal guard elite, warriors trained from birth to find and destroy the rebel fleet. She also placed a bounty on Elias' cross, 1 million credits for the human husband. Elias laughed when he heard it. "That's the highest price anyone's ever put on me." But danger grew closer. One evening, Vela found Elias staring at a wall covered in mission maps and battle plans. "We can't run forever," he said. "She'll keep sending armies. We need to end it." Vela nodded. "Then we fight her." Hadan Elias looked at her. "If we go to war, people will die." "They're already dying," she said. "But if we win, we change everything." They stood close. The air between them was quiet but warm. "You've changed," Elias said. "So have you." Their hands touched just for a second. No words were needed. The fire had grown between them, just for justice, but for each other. The final message was sent to the Empress. "We challenge you. Meet us at the Drift Belt. Let the galaxy choose its ruler." The Empress accepted it would be war. As the rebel fleet gathered near the shattered moons of the drift belt, Elias stood on the bridge of the rising flame. His armor was dark, marked with both Earth and Zyreli symbols. Vela stood beside him in her royal command robes, no longer a princess, but a general. The stars ahead were filled with enemy ships. Elias looked at her. "Ready?" Vela nodded. "Always." And as the first blast lit up the void, the world watched, human and alien, enemy and ally, all saw two people once strangers. Once forced to marry, now standing together at the heart of a revolution. Together they lit the fire. The sky was full of fire. Laser beams crossed the stars like shooting lights. Ships exploded one by one, glowing briefly before vanishing into space dust. The battle of the drift belt had begun. From the bridge of the rising flame, Elias Cross watched the chaos calmly. He had seen war before. He had led men into impossible fights. But this battle felt different now. It wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for change. Beside him stood Princess Valazin, no longer the quiet royal he had met on their wedding day. She gave orders with a steady voice, her silver hair tied tightly behind her back, his eyes glowing with fierce focus. Enemy fighters approaching on the left called a rebel pilot. Elias leaned forward, turned shields, dropped decoys, hit their engines, not their weapons. The ship moved like a shadow in firelight. Zyreli warships surrounded them, but the rising flame was faster, smarter. The rebels fought not with numbers, but with hope, and hope made them dangerous. In the middle of the battle, the Empress's flagship appeared. It was massive, 10 times the size of any other ship. Its armor was made of dark crystal and heavy steel. From its center came a storm of drones, weapons, and sound waves meant to break enemy minds. Elias stared at it. "There she is," he said. The Empress Vela's face was hard. "Won't stop until we're crushed. Then we stop her first." The plan was already in motion. While most of the rebel ships distracted the enemy fleet, Elias, Vela, and a small team would board the Empress's flagship directly. Their goal wasn't to destroy it. It was to reach the heart of power and end the war with truth. The boarding ship was fast and small. Painted black, shaped like a dart, it flew straight into the flagship's blind spot. For a moment it seemed like they might go unnoticed, but then alarms blared. "They've spotted us," shouted the pilot. "Doesn't matter," Elias said. "We go in now." The ship slammed into a side docking port. Doors opened. Smoke filled the hallway. Elias jumped out first, blaster in hand. Vela followed, sword drawn one, passed down by her ancestors, the blade humming with ancient Zyreli power. The fight inside was fast and brutal. Royal guards came at them in group stall, armored warriors with sharp weapons and faster reflexes. But they were no match for Ilias's battlefield mind and Vela's perfect timing. They fought back to back, covering each other, moving as one. At one point, Vela was cornered by 3 guards. Elias dove in from above, knocking them down with an energy pulse. "You owe me one," he said. Vela smirked. "You'll get your thank you later." They reached the inner chamber where the throne room sat, silent and glowing with dark energy. The Empress was waiting. She stood tall, her long cloak trailing behind her. Her eyes were full of fire, and her voice echoed like thunder. "You dare bring a human into my court?" She asked Vela. "I brought my husband," Vela said firmly. The Empress sneered. "He is nothing." "No," Elias said, stepping forward. "I am something you fear, proof that your control is breaking." The Empress raised her hand. "You think this is a revolution? It is a foolish dream. You are a mistake, both of you." Vela held her sword tighter. "And then your empire will fall because of that mistake." What followed wasn't just a fight, it was a test of will. The Empress was powerful. She used advanced psychic tech and hidden weapons. She moved with the strength of someone who had ruled for decades without question. But Elias and Vela fought together, and together they were stronger. Blades clashed, sparks flew. At one point, Elias was knocked down, his arm burned from a blast. Vela screamed his name but didn't stop. She drove her blade forward, slicing through the throne's control systems. Sparks exploded across the room. Elias stood again, limping but alive. He aimed his weapon at the Empress's control panel. "This ends now," he said. With one shot, he destroyed the final system, holding the Empire's network in place. Across, the galaxy screens went dark. The Empress's commands stopped. Ships lost contact. Fleets hesitated. The people saw it clearly. The old rule was broken. Guards surrendered. Civilians cheered. On some planets, Xyreli soldiers laid down arms and joined hands with humans celebrating. The fall of the Iron Crown, the Empress fell to her knees. "Finish it," she hissed. Vela stood over her. "No, you'll stand trial for every lie, every order, every death." The Empress glared at her. "You are weak." Vela nodded slowly. "Maybe, but weak people can still change the galaxy." She turned and walked away, back on the rising. Flame, the crew cheered as Vela and Elias returned. News spread fast. The Empress had fallen. Elias looked around at the rebels. So many species, so many faces, all standing together. He took Vela's hand. "What happens now?" he asked. Vela looked at him. "We rebuild. Not just a new government, but a new way of thinking. One with humans and Xyrelians side by side." "And us?" Elias asked. She smiled. "We're the example." Later, a message was sent to every world. "This is Princess Valazin and Commander Elias Cross. We are no longer ruler and soldier. We are husband and wife, and we are the future." Galaxy listened. For the first time, it believed not in power, not in war, but in hope. And it all began with a forced marriage. It turned into something far more powerful. Months had passed since the fall of the Empress. The Xyreli Empire was no longer ruled by fear, but by counsel and choice. The galaxy was still healing. Some planets were still recovering from damage, others learning to trust again. But anew. Light had appeared across the stars. At the center of this change stood two names now known on every world: Commander Elias Cross and Princess Valazin. Once enemies, now symbols of unity. On the planet near 7, where the new Galactic Council held its first session, hundreds of leaders from dozens of species gathered. They met not in a golden hall, but in a simple circular chamber where every voice could be heard. Elias sat beside Vela, wearing a plain black jacket with no military symbols. Vela wore her dark blue robes, not royal anymore, but representative, leader elected by both her people and the council. "I never thought I'd be part of something like this," Elias whispered. Val smiled. "You were born for it." "Was born for war," he said. "Now you're fighting for peace," she replied. "That's harder." When their names were called, both stood. Vela spoke first. "I was born into a palace built on silence. I was trained to follow orders, not ask questions. But then I saw the truth. And I saw the bravery of those who had nothing: humans, rebels, the forgotten. They taught me that being powerful means nothing if you don't use it to protect others." Looked at Elias and gave a small nod. "My husband was once my enemy, but he chose kindness when he could have chosen hate. That changed me, and now I want to help change the galaxy." The room remained silent for a moment. Then came applause. Slow, steady, growing louder. Elias stepped forward next. "I fought for Earth," he began. "We lost. I was forced to marry someone I didn't know. I thought I'd be used, silenced, forgotten. But what I found was a partner, a cause, a reason to believe again." He looked at the gathered leaders. "We can't erase the past, but we can build something better, together." After the council ended, Elias and Vela walked alone in the city above the meeting halls. The night sky was full of moons and soft lights. The streets were quiet, peaceful. "I never thought peace could be this beautiful," Elias said. Vela looked up. "It doesn't last unless we protect it." "That sounds like a job," Elias smirked. "Everything good is." They paused. a large tree glowing with blue flowers. Beneath it, children played some human, some Zyrelli laughing together. Their parents watched, not as enemies, but as neighbors. "I think we did something right," Elias said. Vela nodded. "We gave them a future." But not everyone agreed with the new order. Across the galaxy, there were still voices of hate. Small rebel groups who believed in old power, some former nobles who wanted revenge. Elias received warnings of attacks. Secret weapons, old commanders regrouping. He knew the work wasn't done. Peace was a daily mission, but this time he wasn't alone. Together, Elias and Vela formed the Guard of Unity, alliance of soldiers, thinkers, builders, and healers. Their goal was simple: protect the weak, guide the broken, and stop anyone who tried to bring back fear. They didn't lead with iron, they led with trust. Elias trained both humans and Zyrelli in joint missions. Vela led peace talks between rival planets. They visited war-torn worlds, rebuilt homes, schools, and centers for learning, and everywhere they went, people asked the same question: how did it start? And Elias always gave the same answer: with a forced marriage and a strange princess who changed my life. One day, while visiting a quiet farming planet, Vela asked Elias to walk with her up a green hill. At the top, wind moved through tall grass. The view stretched far fields, rivers, villages, and stars above. "This place is calm," Elias said. "I brought you here for a reason," Vela replied. She pulled a small device from her coat. Pressed a button, a soft projection appeared, a glowing image of their wedding. The old one, from the day neither had smiled. "Why are you showing me this?" Elias asked. "To remind you where we started," she said, and Vela looked into his eyes. "I want to start again this time, not for peace, not for politics, just for us." Elias blinked. Vela nodded. "Will you marry me again?" He laughed, shaking his head gently. "You always surprise me." Then he stepped forward, took her hands, and said, "Yes, but this time I choose it." A second wedding was held quiet, simple, and honest. No crowds, no speeches, no royal pressure. Just friends, rebels, and allies standing in a circle under the stars. Vela wore a dress woven by a mix of human and Zyrelli hands. Elias wore a dark coat marked only by a small silver flame, the symbol of their rebellion. They said vows not as strangers but as equals, as partners. That night, as they looked up at the sky, Elias whispered, "We were born in war," Vela replied, "but we were reborn in each other." He smiled, and the galaxy followed.